Yes, there's hope for the new MacBook Pros coming out here in the next couple of months because we just got a brand new updated leak showing that not all hope is lost. Yes, we're finally getting better performance with single core, so much more that we might actually be seeing 4nm or maybe 3nm chips, and I'm gonna explain in this video and show you guys the math. So check this out, we just got the new Geekbench scores of these new MacBook Pros. As you can see, someone tweeted right here, 2027 single core score and 14,888. Yes, we finally broke the 2,000 single core barrier on Apple Silicon. The previous leaks, they showed pretty bad scores. As you can see, 1889, which is even worse than the M2 chip, which to me didn't really make sense. But now with the new one, over 2,000 points, that actually makes me feel a lot better. Whether or not it's actually gonna be 5nm, 4nm, maybe 3nm, I don't know. This makes me feel a lot better. Now, the interesting thing about this leaked benchmark compared to the other ones is that the base frequency is now 3.68 gigahertz. So that means this one is clocked even higher than the previous M2 Max models, which were 3.54. So I don't know what change happened here. Maybe this was a prototype and then this one is clocked even higher on the same 5nm maybe, or maybe even it's actually upgraded 4nm from the A16 chip. Or on the other hand, maybe it's because of this being a beta build. As you can see, macOS 13.2, that's actually not out yet. So what if we're gonna see even more improved scores over time, even higher than this? Now, what I do want to mention is that a lot of people thought that these leaks were completely faked, like somebody created some system, faked these leaks. However, I actually went and did a ton of math, and I confirmed that the math actually does check out. So look what I did here. I took the M2 chip performance, I split up the performance between what we have from the multi-core and the single core, and I found that we get about 7,700 points from the performance cores alone and 304.75 from each E-core. Then I did the same thing for the M1 chip. Then I added the math over to the M1 Pro, and I saw that the performance cores actually have some efficiency loss, 9.5% loss in performance core performance when you go up to 6 P-cores. Then I went to the unbinned 10-core model where it goes up to a 14% loss with every performance core when you go up to 8 performance cores. And now I made the theoretical math for the M2 Max leaks. Now I looked at the original one that we had last week with the 12-core setup where we have the same 8 performance cores, but now 4 efficiency instead of 2, and I'm gonna talk about the implications of that in just a minute. But I added everything up, I did the math, I added in the 14% performance loss. As you can see right here, I looked at the performance per each performance core with that loss added in, and finally, we got 14,215 multi-core points, which checks out right there close to the multi-core score that we saw in the leak last week. But now with the new leaks, I did it again with the updated scores. As you can see, 2027 per each core. I added in the performance loss of 14%. I added it all up, as you can see right here, and I ended up with 15,165 multi-core points, which is right there, only a couple of hundred points off from the actual leaked benchmark, which is 14,888. So that's within a margin of difference. So we could actually see 15,000 multi-core scores, and the math, of course, checks out. So honestly, I don't think that these leaked benchmarks are fake. I think they actually are legit and they check out. But now the key point that we have to evaluate is, of course, the 3.68 gigahertz base frequency, which is very, very unique because if you look at the frequency of the M2 chip, the highest clock speed or gigahertz per core is 3.5 with a single core. But for some reason, this leak shows 3.68. So Apple obviously clocked it higher. Now the question is, why did they clock it higher? Because if you go back and you look at all of the M1 family of chips, starting with the original regular M1, it was clocked at 3.2. Then if you look at the M1 Pro, also 3.2 cap in terms of the single core clock speed. Then M1 Max, 3.2. Then M1 Ultra in the Mac Studio, also 3.2. So Apple decided to cap all of them, hard cap at 3.2 gigahertz. I think it's because it's part of the same family. Apple wanted to cap it across the board in terms of single core performance, probably so that when the M2 family comes out, it all looks like it's faster and better. However, the weird thing is that the M2 is 3.5, which makes sense, so I assumed the entire M2 family would be 3.5 as well, but this new leak is 3.68. So what if the M2 Pro and M2 Max is actually on a different process node technology? Not the same 5 nanometer, but potentially 4 nanometer or even 3 nanometer. And that's actually what iCaveDave on Twitter assumed might actually happen, because as soon as he saw the updated leak with over 2,000 single core, he said, hey, it might actually be 3 nanometer this time around because of that high score, due to, of course, the higher 3.68 gigahertz clock speed. But now, regardless of which process node it ends up being on, I do want to make a point about the 12-core M2 Max chip, and that it's going to have 8 performance cores, which is unchanged, but now it's going to have double the efficiency cores, 4 instead of 2, and that is going to mean some actually nice improvements for you, because battery life is gonna improve. One of the reasons why these higher end 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros didn't get the same really good battery life as the M1 and the M2 MacBook Air was because they only have 2 efficiency cores, which means that they have to rely more on the performance cores, which eat more power. But now they're on an even playing field with 4 efficiency cores, both on the M2 chip regular and the M2 Pro and M2 Max. So that is gonna improve because they're gonna be able to handle more tasks by themselves without having to access those performance cores. So that's going to be a benefit regardless if we stay on 5 nanometer or even go to 4 or 3. But now here's the problem with 5 nanometer. Even though this new leak has over 2,000 single core score, almost 15,000 multi-core, check this out. This is Intel's new i9-13900HX, which is a mobile chip that's going to be going into those big laptops. Look, it beats it out in every way. Faster single core and much faster multi-core. But now, with that said, let's actually delve into the graphics performance that we could see on the M2 Max, and I actually ran some calculations that I'm gonna go through, but first I wanna show you an updated Geekbench 5 metal test that we just ran on the M1 Max, 71,288 points, which is pretty good, and that's gonna be our baseline for these calculations that we're about to do. Now, here's how I figured out the graphics performance. I took the M2 chip compared to the M1, which the M1 had 21,500 metal score and the M2 had 30,842. So that's a pretty good difference. However, you have to keep in mind that the M1 had an 8-core GPU, the M2 has a 10-core, which is 25% more cores. So if we add 25% to the score of the M1, which is 21.5 times 25, that gives us 26,905 points. Now with theoretically the same 10 cores, now that we added that 25% in, the M2 chip is now only 15% faster than the 10-core theoretical M1, which is the actual architectural gain with no difference in cores. So really going from M1 to M2 technology, 15% faster. So now let's apply that same thing to the M2 Max chip. According to Mark Gurman, he believes that the M2 Max is gonna have 38 GPU cores compared to the 32 that we have with the current M1 Max. So now going from the 32 core M1 Max to 38, that's 18.75% more cores, not 25% more like we had with the regular M2 chip because it had a lower number of cores, so the difference is bigger. So if we take the M1 Max's score that we have right now, 71,288, then add 18.75 to account for the core difference going up to 38 cores, we now have 84,654 metal score. Then we go in and add the 15% architectural improvement gain, assuming it's on the same 5 nanometer as the M2, and we're left with 97,000 metal points, which is getting pretty close to 100,000, which is actually decent. And that leaves us with a score that's 36.5% faster than the 32 core M1 Max. And that's actually not that bad now that I think about it, even on 5 nanometer. So what if Apple can get away with 5 nanometer again? It's a disappointing upgrade for us tech enthusiasts, but for the basic person, they're not even gonna know what's going on with 5 nanometer versus potential 3 nanometer. They're just gonna see it and buy it. They're gonna see that it's faster. They're gonna look at Apple's marketing. Hey, 36% faster this time around. They're gonna buy it. And for Apple, it could make sense to delay the real 3 nanometer upgrade for another year and a half while we go through this recession, because people might not be buying them anyway. So the question we have now is, do we wait for this M2 Max, or do we just buy the current ones we have now that are already really good at video editing, photo editing, programming? They're already good. So do you justify waiting and spending potentially more for the new M2 Max, or just buy one of these on sale right now, which you can do using the YouTube product tagging feature? Just click that link right there. You could definitely do that. So let me know your thoughts on this down in the comment section below, and click the circle above to subscribe for more videos like this. Check out one of those two right there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.